children, now let us begin the story Hearts and Hands, written by O. Henry. William Sidney Potter was an American writer who wrote under the pen name O. Henry. So, William Sidney Potter's pen name is O. Henry, a very popular author. He's an American writer. His short stories are well known for their ready wit, gentle humor, and surprise endings. One of the characteristics of O. Henry's stories has always been that there is a sting in the tale. That is, there is surprise in the end of his short stories, and they are full of wit and humor. His story Hearts and Hands describes the chance encounter on a train between two acquaintances. Now, encounter means meeting. So, it is about a by chance meeting between two known people. Acquaintances means those who are familiar with each other, and they are Miss Fairchild and Mr. Easton. They just meet on the train by chance. The situation turns awkward when Miss Fairchild notices that Easton is handcuffed to a grim looking man. So the situation becomes very awkward when suddenly Miss Fairchild realizes that her friend Mr. Easton was handcuffed to a very grim, means a very strict looking man. The man intervenes to save Easton. Intervenes means interferes. He interferes to save Easton from embarrassment and prevent the girl from discovering the truth about him. So he interferes to save Easton from feeling ashamed of himself because he was in handcuffs, and also to hide the true from the girl the true identity of who he was and who Mr. Easton was, in the sense who was the marshal and who was the prisoner. It is only through the observations of their fellow passengers that the reader is made aware of the real nature of the relationship between the two men handcuffed to each other. So it is only through the observations of two passengers who are sitting next to them in the train that the readers become aware as to what the relationship between the two men is. That is, who is the law officer and who is the prisoner. So let us begin with the line-wise explanation of the story. At Denver, there was an influx of passengers. So at Denver, a lot of passengers, influx means a mass arrival. A large number of passengers got into the coaches on the eastbound B&M Express. So at Denver, a large number of passengers, they entered into the coaches of the B&M Express. That is the train going towards the east. In one coach, there sat a very pretty young woman dressed in elegant taste and surrounded by all the luxurious comforts of an experienced traveler. So in one of the coaches of the train was sitting a very beautiful young woman who was dressed in elegant taste. She was dressed up elegantly and she was surrounded by all the comforts that generally only a experienced traveler will carry along with him or her. So here the keywords to remember are pretty, young, elegant taste, luxurious comforts, and experienced traveler. These should be there in your answers. Among the newcomers were two young men, one of handsome presence. So among the newcomers who got onto the coaches of the train were two young men, and one of those two young men was of handsome presence. That is, he had a very handsome external appearance with a bold, frank countenance and manner. He had a very bold and frank countenance, means face, very bold and frank face and mannerism. So keywords: bold, frank countenance, manner, to explain the one of those young men who have come. The other, a ruffled, glum-faced person, heavily built and roughly dressed. So the other man was ruffled, means rough, glum-faced means very moody and melancholic, heavily built means very tall and gigantic, and roughly dressed up, not dressed up well. So these are the four words, key words to describe the other man: ruffled, glum-faced, heavily built, and roughly dressed. The two were handcuffed together, and the two of them were bound to each other with handcuffs. As they passed down the aisle of the coach, now aisle is a passageway between rows of chairs or seats. So as both of them handcuffed together, they passed down that passageway of the coach. The only vacant seat will be the only empty seat offered was a reversed one facing the attractive young woman. So the only vacant seat offered to them was the one which was opposite to the seat on which that attractive young woman was sitting. Here the linked couple seated themselves. Linked couple means the two young men who were handcuffed together. They were linked or bound together with the handcuffs on their wrists. So they sat over there. The young woman's glance means to look at someone or something briefly. So the young woman, she looked briefly upon them with a distant, swift disinterest. Distant means indifferent. Swift means quick. Disinterest means lack of interest. So she just briefly looked at both of them very indifferently without any interest. Then, with a lovely smile brightening her countenance, then suddenly a beautiful bright smile came on her face and it lit up her countenance. Countenance means it lit up her face, and a tender pink tinging her rounded cheeks. Tinging means coloring, and then her rounded cheeks, they had a soft pink coloring. She really got a little embarrassed. She started blushing. That is why her cheeks turned pink. She held out a little grey gloved hand. So she held out her right hand on which she was wearing a grey colored glove to shake hands with one of them. When she spoke, her voice full, sweet, and deliberate proclaimed that its owner was accustomed to speak and be heard. So when this woman spoke, her voice was full, very loud, very clear. Words were well articulated. Very sweetly she spoke and deliberate. Intentionally she spoke those words with expression. Proclaimed means declared. She declared, the way she spoke, she declared it to the listeners that she was a woman who was used to speaking a lot, and she expected others to pay attention to her and listen to her carefully. So the key words to remember over here regarding her voice are full, sweet, deliberate. Well, Mr. Easton, if you will make me speak first, I suppose I must. Don't you ever recognize old friends when you meet them in the West? So she speaks in this kind of a voice and she says, well, Mr. Easton, it shows that you want me to speak first. I should acknowledge your presence first, so I will. But she says, don't you recognize your old friends if you happen to meet them in the West? Don't you recognize them? The young man roused himself sharply at the sound of her voice. So the younger of the two men, he was probably a little lost in his thoughts. So he quickly woke himself quickly at the sound of the voice of the woman, seemed to struggle with slight embarrassment. So he was a little embarrassed and he struggled to fight with that embarrassment, which he threw off instantly. Instantly means immediately. So for some time he was a little embarrassed because he had been spotted by an acquaintance of his, and that too in handcuffs. So he was embarrassed, but quickly he threw off that embarrassment and got normal, and then clasped her fingers with his left hand, and then he just put forward his left hand to shake hands with her right hand. It's Miss Fairchild, he said with a smile. I'll ask you to excuse the other hand. It's otherwise engaged just at present. So he says, oh, it's Miss Fairchild. He recognizes her and he has a smile on his face and he says that you will have to please excuse me. You will have to forgive my other right hand because at present it is engaged. Engaged means it is busy. He slightly raised his right hand. Now, to give evidence of what he was saying, he raised his right hand, bound at the wrist by the shining bracelet, to the left one of his companion. So, he just raised his right hand a little, which was bound. Bound means which was tied at the wrist by the shining bracelet. Now, shining bracelet is referred to the handcuffs over here, which are shining, and his right wrist was handcuffed to the left wrist of his companion, that is the other man with him. The glad look in the girl's eyes slowly changed to a bewildered horror. So a very happy look was in the eyes of the girl, but slowly that happy look changed into a bewildered means confused, horror means fear. She was really confused. There was fear in her eyes. The glow faded from her cheeks. Remember, her cheeks were tinging with pink color? Their color faded. She became pale. Her lips parted in a vague, relaxing distress. So her lips just parted in a kind of a vague. Vague means something not clear. Relaxing distress, which was causing a kind of stress and strain to her. You could see it, the way her lips parted, as if she was really distressed. Easton with a little laugh as if amused. So Easton realized why she was feeling so bewildered. So he just laughed a little as if he was amused, was about to speak again when the other forestalled him. He was about to give an explanation and say something again, but he was forestalled. Forestalled means he was delayed from speaking because his companion spoke before he could do so. So he forestalled him. The glum-faced man had been watching the girl's countenance. So the glum-faced man means the man with a sad and a very sad look on his face. He had been very carefully watching Miss Fairchild's countenance, that is her face, with veiled glances. Veiled means hidden. Glances means to look briefly. So secretly he was looking towards her face from his keen, shrewd eyes. Keen means very observant. Shrewd means cunning. He had been observing her with his keen and cunning eyes from now and then. You'll excuse me for speaking, miss, but I see you are acquainted with the marshal here. So this is what the other glum-faced man had to say. He says, excuse me, madam, I am speaking, but I see that you are acquainted, means you are familiar with the marshal here. Marshal means the law officer. So the glum-faced man introduces Mr. Easton as the law officer. So he says, I see that you, from your conversation, that you know the marshal over here. If you will ask him to speak a word for me, so please intervene and ask him to put in a good word for me when we get to the pen. Pen over here refers to the prison. When we get to the prison, if he will do it, and it will make things easier for me there. He says, if you put in a word for me and ask him to put good words for me in the jail. So if he does that, if he praises me in the jail, then things will become easier for me. That is, the jailer will treat me well, because now they are going to the Leavenworth prison. He goes on to say, he's taking me to the Leavenworth prison. It's 7 years for counterfeiting. So he says, well, he is the marshal. I am the prisoner and I am being taken by him to the Leavenworth prison, and I will be behind the bars for 7 years for counterfeiting, for imitation. Oh, said the girl with a deep breath and returning color. So that is what you are doing out here, a marshal. So she got a peace of mind and she says, okay, fine. She took a deep breath of relief, a deep sigh of relief, and the color returned to her cheeks. So she says, okay, now I know what you are doing here. So you are a marshal. "My dear Miss Fairchild," said Easton calmly. So Mr. Easton spoke very calmly and he said, "I had to do something. Money has a way of taking wings unto itself." So he says very calmly that, "Miss Fairchild, I had to do something to earn my livelihood. And you know, money has a way of taking wings means money gets over within seconds. You don't even realize when you earn the money, and when you spend it, when all your money is over, you don't even realize it. And you know, it takes money to keep step with our crowd in Washington." And he says, "You know that I need quite a lot of money in order to keep up with the high standard of living of the people in Washington. I saw this opening in the West, and well, a marshalship isn't quite as high a post as that of an ambassador, but..." So he says, "I got this opening in the West, that is, this designation of a marshal was vacant. So I took it." And well, he says, "I am a marshal, and marshalship is not a very high designation, not a very high position compared to an ambassador, but..." So before he could speak further, Miss Fairchild, she intervenes. "The ambassador," said the girl warmly, "doesn't call any more. He needn't ever have done so. You ought to know that." So she says, probably here we see that ambassador was a common friend of theirs, and Miss Fairchild was quite friendly to this ambassador. So she informs Mr. Easton that the ambassador doesn't call me anymore. We are not in touch anymore, and he doesn't need to also keep in touch with me. You should know that. You should be aware of the fact that we are no more friends. And so now you are one of these dashing Western heroes, and you ride and shoot and go into all kinds of dangers." So she says, "Okay, now you are a dashing means a good look, very handsome Western, one of those Western heroes who ride the horses, and they have wear that hat on their head, and they go about shooting with their pistols and get into all sorts of dangers. So you are one of them now. That's different from the Washington life." She says, "That is quite different from the life you led in Washington. You have been missed from the old crowd. Really, your old friends really miss you a lot." The girl's eyes, fascinated, went back, widening a little to rest upon the glittering handcuffs. So the girl's eyes, again, they were fascinated. Fascinated means her eyes, her interest was captured by the glittering handcuffs. Glittering means shining and sparkling handcuffs. And when she looked at those handcuffs, her eyes widened a little. They opened a little broader. "Don't you worry about them, miss," said the other man. So the glum-faced man again came to her rescue, and he said, "Miss, don't worry about the handcuffs. All marshals handcuff themselves to their prisoners to keep them from getting away. Mr. Easton knows his business." So he says, "Well, it is a custom. All the marshals, all the law officers, they handcuff themselves to the wrists of the prisoners so that the prisoners don't get away." They don't get away means they don't run away. That is why. Mr. Easton knows his business. He says, "Well, Mr. Easton knows his job. He knows it very well." "Will we see you again soon in Washington?" asked the girl. So Miss Fairchild doesn't pay attention to what the glum-faced man had said. She continues talking to Mr. Easton, and she asks him, "Will you be going to Washington any time soon?" "Not soon, I think," said Easton. "My butterfly days are over, I fear." He says, "No, not very soon. I don't think so. I'll be going to Washington any soon. My butterfly days, my days of freedom like a butterfly, when I could just fly everywhere like a butterfly, when I was free, those days are over, I'm afraid." "I love the West," said the girl irrelevantly. Now, out of the blue, the girl just mentioned, "I love the West. I love this countryside." Very irrelevantly. Why irrelevantly? Because they were not talking about this context. They were not talking in the context of the West at all. So, she's talking on a topic which is not related to what they were discussing. That is why irrelevantly. Her eyes were shining softly. There was a sparkle in her eyes. She looked away out the car window. Then she quickly looked out of the window of the coach. She began to speak truly and simply without the gloss of style and manner. So now she started talking very normally, in a very simple way, without having a very shiny style. Gloss of style means in a very stylish mannerism. And she speaks very simply. Mama and I spent the summer in Denver. She says, my mother and myself, we spent the summer at Denver. She went home a week ago because father was slightly ill. So she says, my mother went back home because my father was not well. I could live and be happy in the West. I think the air here agrees with me. So she says, I can easily live and be very happy in the West. I feel the air agrees with me. Air agrees with me over here means that the weather over here, it suits my health. Money isn't everything. She says money is not everything in life, but people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. But she says people always misunderstand. So it is a reference to Mr. Easton, who has always felt that Miss Fairchild, she loves living in a grand style. She wants a lot of money, and that is why she lives in Washington. So she's trying to remove all those doubts from the mind of Mr. Easton, and she says, indirectly, that you don't misunderstand me. Clarify all your doubts. Don't remain so stupid. You should know that money is not everything for me. I can easily live happily in the West. Say, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. So the glum-faced man literally growled. Growl means making a sound like an animal. Said Mr. Marshall, this isn't quite fair. I'm needing a drink and haven't had a smoke all day. So he says, this is not fair. You're not doing justice with me. I need to take a drink, and the whole day long I haven't smoked a cigar. I need to smoke. Haven't you talked long enough? Haven't you spoken to this lady long enough? Take me in the smoker now, won't you? I'm half dead for a pipe. So he tells the Mr. Marshall that please take me to the smoker. Now smoker is a compartment in the train where the passengers are allowed to smoke. So he says take me to the smoker because I'm dead for a pipe means I really want to smoke a pipe. The bound travelers rose to their feet. Bound means both the travelers, both the young men, they are tied together with the handcuffs. They stood up to their feet. Easton with the same slow smile on his face, and Mr. Easton still had that smile on his face. I can't deny a petition for tobacco. So he gives an explanation to Miss Fairchild that I cannot refuse. A petition means a request for tobacco. I cannot refuse his request to go and smoke. He said lightly, it's the one friend of the unfortunate. He says, well, tobacco is one friend of the unlucky people, the sad people, unfortunate people. Goodbye, Miss Fairchild. Duty calls, you know. He held out his hand for a farewell. So he says goodbye to Miss Fairchild and he says that duty is calling me. I need to go from here. And then he just held out his left hand to shake hands with Miss Fairchild as a sign of farewell. It's too bad you're not going east, she said, reclothing herself with the manner and style. Once again she spoke in a very stylish mannerism and she says it's really bad that you're not going to the east anytime soon. But you must go to Leavenworth, I suppose. So she says, I suppose you have to go to Leavenworth prison. Yes, said Easton, I must go to Leavenworth. He says, yes, I must go to Leavenworth. The two men settled down the ale into the smoker. So the two bound men, they moved sideways. Sidle means they moved sideways down the ale through the passageway into the smoker, that is the compartment where smoking is allowed. The two passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. So there were two passengers sitting just on a seat next to them and they had listened to almost nearly the whole of the conversation going on between the three of them. Said one of them, so one of them spoke, that Marshall's a good sort of chap. He says that Marshall, that law officer, he seems to be a nice man. A good sort of chap means a nice man. Some of these Western fellows are all right. He says some of these people, some of these men from the West, they are good. they are all right. Otherwise, the people from the West, they don't have a very good reputation. They are considered to be very rude and very harsh. So some of them are good. Pretty young to hold an office like that, isn't he? Asked the other. So the other passenger said to him that isn't he very young to hold the office of a marshal? Isn't he too young to be a marshal? Young? Exclaimed the first speaker. So the first speaker was little shocked. He said, you think the marshal is young? Why, oh, didn't you catch on? He says, okay, you didn't understand. You didn't catch on means you didn't understand. Say, he says, please just think. Did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner to his right hand? He said, just think for yourself. Have you ever seen a marshal, a law officer, handcuff his right wrist to the left wrist of the prisoner? Have you got it, children? This is the sting in the story. The sting in the tale. Towards the end, the surprise ending. Children, the marshal was the glum-faced man and Mr. Easton was the prisoner, because the marshals always, they handcuff their left wrist to the right wrist of the prisoner. So Mr. Easton's right wrist was handcuffed to the glum-faced man. So Mr. Easton was the prisoner and the marshal was the glum-faced man. And the marshal told a lie to protect, to save Mr. Easton from feeling embarrassed in front of his lady acquaintance, Miss Fairchild. That is why he told a lie. But he is the marshal and he is taking Mr. Easton to Leavenworth prison for 7 years for counterfeiting. I hope you've understood the story. Thank you.